Welcome to episode 19 of The Player and the Journalist with Karson Harris and David Vick. In this episode, the fans are in control. Karson and I are so grateful for everyone who listens to and enjoys the podcast, so we thought it would be fun for you to decide what we talk about in this episode. And you all have decided on a discussion of 5 teams. Whether we were right or wrong on earlier predictions, way too early Final Four contenders, and tips for beginners, which I will leave mostly to Karson. Karson, how are we doing today a few weeks into the season?
We are doing good. It was 75 and sunny in North Carolina this week. I'm in Philly right now. It's gone down a little bit. It's a little bit cold right now, but I like the warmer weather's coming in. That's going to be nice for those cross teams that are starting to gear up their season. Way better weather to play in. So it's good. It's been a good week.
Nice. Well, hey, here in Utah, we got a bunch of snow this week, and the high hasn't been above, I think, 38 maybe. So,
comes down.
Hey, I love the snow, so it's all good. So we will get right into it, and we will start with talking teams, and we will start specifically with Army. This was asked by Peter Beardsley 4, and Army, if you do not know, they are 4-0. They've won 3 or 4 at home. They just beat a top 10 Rutgers team in some snowy conditions. Thoughts on them?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, they've beaten Jacksonville, who was ranked 19th at the time. They beat Rutgers, who was ranked 5th at the time, 9th, 5th. 9th, I think. That's what I thought too, and I had 5th written down. I was like, that's not right.
Oh yeah, that seems a little high.
I was like, that feels wrong. Yeah. Anyway, so they've beaten 2 really good teams. They're starting out, they're really strong. But they've beaten 2 teams that haven't entirely proven themselves to me yet. So I think it's too early to say that Army's on this like hot streak. I mean, I think that beating those 2 teams is incredible, especially for Army, who that's not like typically in their repertoire. But Jacksonville, we've talked about them before. Like they've had some disappointing losses this season already. Rutgers does seem to be struggling to score this season. So I think that them beating those 2 ranked opponents is really, really huge for them, and they can have great momentum going forward. However, I don't know if it means that they should go ahead and be in like a top 10, top 15 program, because I think those 2 rankings came from just the fact that it's early in the season and Jacksonville Rutgers had success last year. So they haven't had a chance, like the schedule hasn't had a chance to even itself out yet. So I don't know, but realistically, their season, I mean, with the season they're having, I think they're going to have a good record. I put them at 13-4, 13. They're going to loss to like Yale, maybe Loyola, realistically. Unfortunately, I think they will have to win the Patriot League to get a bid to the NCAA tournament. That's a way too early prediction, but I do think that that could be, just because of their strength of schedule, that's what they're going to need, which could be tough against Loyola. But yeah, I mean, they're starting out their season really, really strong.
Well, that didn't take long, because I disagree with you already, Karson. Show them some love, would you? Okay, they beat Jacksonville, who has turned it around in their previous game. Okay, they beat Stanford. Gotta show them some love as well. Props to Jacksonville for finally doing what we expected them to do and winning a lacrosse game. Okay. And focusing on Rutgers is a very good team. Their goalie played insanely good yesterday. She did not get much help at all from her defense. It was a bad performance from Rutgers. Honestly, they looked so bad, in my opinion. They were down 5-0 after the first quarter. They had so many bad turnovers. It looked like they couldn't even pass and catch. Granted, it was snowing at the start of the game, but Army protected the ball way better. And I was impressed with Army. I feel like whenever the weather's bad, you just have to go back to the basics, pass, catch, look in the ball, just the basic stuff you learn when you first start playing any sport if the weather is bad. And I feel like Army did that at a way higher level than Rutgers did. So shout out to Army, shout out to their coaching staff. Michelle Tumolo has something good going there. Okay. And they beat number 9 Rutgers, and I saw this on their Instagram. It was their first ever win program history against a top 10 team. So that is super impressive for Army. They've got a good thing going right now. And if they do not find themselves in the rankings come this week, which this episode comes out on Tuesday, so the rankings will already be out. If they are not in the rankings, there is something seriously wrong. 4-0, a top 10 win, a top 20 win, and they're just good. I mean, and they're just really good, okay? And have you seen their goalie? I don't know if you've seen their goalie, but hopefully I do not mispronounce her name. Lacey Bartholomew, not Bartholomew, Bartholomew, okay? She's insanely good, okay? She was great yesterday. The goalies played great yesterday, and she on the season, Bartholomew, 67.3% save percentage, and only 6.55 goals allowed average. That's insane. I don't care who you're playing.
I forgot Michelle Tumalo was their coach too, because she's newer. So that could also be giving them a lot of like momentum and push this year, is with her as their head coach. That I forgot that could also be changing things. I did forget about her as their head coach.
Yeah, they have a really good coaching staff. They have Katrina Dowd on the coaching staff, who was at North Carolina for a while. They also have Simpkins, who graduated from Syracuse a few years ago. She's kind of running their defense. And Katrina Dowd and Michelle Tumalo, when they were at the top of their game, they could score with the best of them. So
right.
I would like to see more from their offense, but it's still early in the season. I think their offense will get going a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think they've held all 4 of their opponents to under 10 goals this season, which is impressive, like very, very impressive, and also something that you have to do to win a game. So
for sure. So against Rutgers, they had 5 goals in the first quarter. They led 5-0. They only had 5 goals the rest of the game. Against Jacksonville, they had 6 goals in the second quarter. The other 3 quarters, they only had 6 goals combined. So, like I said, I would like to see more from their offense, because if you want to beat the best, you're going to have to score more than 10 or 12 goals. You're going to have to score around 15, I would say, if you want a chance to compete with Northwestern, with Syracuse, North Carolina, Boston College. So, obviously, still early in the season. I think it's only the second year for Michelle Tumalo, so they still have time to build. But I would like to see their offense take the next step. Their defense has been great. And I've heard this in a few different broadcasts, that the defense is normally ahead of the offense when the season starts. And so I think they'll be fine. I'm very impressed with Army. A lot more love is going to them from me than going to them from Karson. Just want to make that very clear.
No, that's not true. Wait, that's not true at all. I think that they are a great team. I just think that the teams that they beat are ranked high. And I don't think that by the end of the season, Rutgers and Jackson will be in the top 25. That's all I was saying. I don't think those will be in the top 25, top 20.
What are you smoking?
Jacksonville? You actually think Jacksonville's going to be in the top 25 by the end of the season?
Top 25, yes. Okay, they're done
top
losing.
20.
Their schedule's
Well, yeah, but that doesn't, like, their games that they had the chance to prove themselves, like them beating their conference games aren't going to keep them in the top 20.
Yes, but if they haven't dropped out the rankings yet, they're definitely not going to now.
All right.
And Rutgers, you need to put some respect on their name, Karson. Oh, up there in New Jersey, they're not gonna like Karson Harris. You keep talking about him like this. Okay, you need to put some respect on him.
They only put 11 goals up on Georgetown. Everybody's put more goals up on Georgetown than Rutgers has at this point in the season.
Has American?
Probably not. I don't think they've even played Georgetown yet.
Okay. The disrespect is unreal to start this episode. Just a few more things from me on Army. So, like I said, I want to see their offense pick it up. But a positive from their offense right now, they have 29 assists on 62 goals scored. So they're moving the ball. That's a great sign. And 3 of their top 5 shooters are shooting above 50%, which is a great sign as well. Overall, they need to pick it up, but they're doing a lot of good things. And they're going to have the whole month of March is going to be kind of like tune-up games for them going into, let's see, when they play Yale in early April. So the whole month of March, expect Army to go undefeated. Expect them to be undefeated entering April when they play Yale in a big matchup, which Yale's coming off a loss to Stony Brook. Not a bad loss to Stony Brook, but we're not talking about them. And so that'll be a very interesting game. So anyways, Army 4-0. They've won 3 of 4 games at home. They're looking pretty good. 4-0. They're about to be ranked next week.
I did say their record was going to be 13-3 this season at the very start of this episode.
Army or Rutgers?
Army.
Okay. Well,
I think their record will be 13-3. I just don't think that they have a strength of schedule to catapult them up to like a high ranking.
What if they beat Yale and Loyola?
Yeah, then that would do it. That would do it. A win over Loyola would definitely do it, and I will eat my words.
Oh, yes, you will. Anyways, moving on to our second team, Xavier, okay? This was submitted by Kiera Armitage, 2022. I hope I did not butcher your name. If so, I apologize. I'm not great with names, as I'm sure you know if you have listened to this podcast long enough. So Xavier, back-to-back dubs, okay? They just beat Longwood less than an hour ago. That game went final, okay? 16-14. That's coming off their first ever program win in which they beat Radford 15-14. So they're putting up some goals their past few games. They're 2-2, and that's after losing to Oregon and then Detroit Mercy to start the season. So Xavier, 2-2. That's not bad for a new program, okay? Winning the close games. What are your thoughts on Xavier, or do you have any on Xavier?
Yeah, I mean, just like I was just looking at their losses, and Detroit Mercy and Oregon they lost, and they only had 4 people scoring, and then in Radford they had 9 different people scoring, which is kind of what you expect as the season goes on, especially for a new program. You start to see more people get on the board, which is the keys to success, right? So I think that that's really good for them, and a really good positive like outlook for their future is just that as the season progresses, they're going to need more people to step up and score, and that happened. Started to happen so far for them. So I think that that's something that they can really like emphasize and hold on to. They have had quite a few turnovers in their last couple of games.
Do you have numbers for
but
us?
also, what's your well, in their loss to Detroit Mercy, they had 30. Yeah. In Radford, they had 18, which is good. That's huge progression forward, and for a new program, like that's what you're looking for. You're looking for that progression. So, but yeah, I think their keys to success, honestly, moving forward, is just making sure that you get a bunch of goal scorers on the board, and also like really trying to clean up those passes and make them look sharp and make it look like you've been there before. So that's all I have to say on them. I think their schedule being in the Big East is just going to take a pretty difficult turn for them here towards the end of the season. So I'll be interested in see how they handle some of those games.
Yes, that's one note I have, so I'll just go ahead and get that out of the way. The second half of their schedule is going to be very tough for them. And listen, it's their first year as a program. I don't think anyone should judge them by wins or losses. Obviously, you want to get the wins for just the team morale and the recruits. Oh, it's our first year, So obviously it's important for them to get some early season wins, which they have gotten. Second half of the schedule is going to be very tough because the Big East is pretty good right now. Okay, so that will happen. It's all good. No worries. I have a statement, and it's going to sound a little blunt, but I just have to. It's my opinion. So I watched their game against Oregon. This was their season opener. And 2 things. I'll start with the happier part of my two-prong approach here. Okay, they need more. First off, they need more time to gel as a team, and it's their first year. That's to be expected. And they aren't like Pitt, who had a whole year of practice before they played. They didn't have that. So I think they're going to need more time. It's not going to be pretty at times. You mentioned the 30 turnovers. That's not great, but it's not going to be pretty when you have a brand new program. Okay. So they need more time, which is to be expected for a first-year team, and also to be expected. I think they just lack talent right now. Watching them against Oregon, there was just a talent gap. And Oregon, no offense to them, as you know, I like Oregon, but they're kind of a middle of the pack team right now. So for there to be a talent gap from Oregon to Xavier, like I said, I think it's to be expected. Just I got to be honest. I think there's a talent gap. I think they're going to really struggle at times this year. But like you said, if they are making progressions game after game, that's all you can ask for from any team. And it will be hard for a lot of people on the outside looking in, because me and you, we aren't going to watch all the games. Not everyone is going to watch all their games. They're just not one of those programs right now. And so it would be easy to look at their stats against, say, Denver. And if you haven't watched the game when it happens, look at their stats and you're like, man, these stats are terrible. But you have to keep in mind, Denver has been around forever. Villanova is going to be another good team that they play. And so as long as they are making progressions internally and they can recognize that, then it's a successful season, in my opinion, for them.
I agree. I think that's what you're looking for. I mean, teams grow. People build with new coaches, like let alone a whole new team together. So it will take time. And I would look out like in 3 or 4 years, it'd be interesting to see where they are then, for sure.
For sure. And hey, ending on a good note with them, they have 2 upcoming games that are both very winnable. They go at Presbyterian on March 4th and then at Wofford on March 7th. So they could get to 4-2 before things get really difficult. And that would be a huge win for them if they get to 4-2. Okay. And I think that would be cool.
I agree.
Awesome. Moving on to our third. We had a bunch of people submit teams that they wanted us to talk about. So we are going on to Clemson, submitted by S. Vestal. Thoughts on them, Karson? You are up first.
I would have bet my right arm and my firstborn child that they were going to lose to Notre Dame this week. I my entire life savings would have put on it because they had not had any sort of preparation for a team like that. Not you cannot expect to go win games 23-1, 19-3, 21-1, 22-2, and then go play an ACC team and expect to win. I mean, there is some sort of level of preparation that comes with playing good teams. And if you are just smashing teams day in and day out after every game, like that feeling you get when you're in a tight game, that pressure that you're feeling on your hands, like you don't have that experience in a game. And so there was just no way that they were going to put up the numbers that they were expected to against the ACC. I think that their schedule is going to really hurt them. You talked about it in the beginning of this, like we talked about on a podcast before, that I think their schedule is just not going to prepare them for the ACC teams. And had they played harder games, I know that they wanted to keep their record looking pretty. Like I understand what they were doing, but I think they've really hurt themselves when it comes to playing an ACC team with their schedule. Now, it wasn't a horrible loss. It wasn't like I think that they can walk away from it happy, but I still like. But we wonder if they'd played harder teams, if they played Hopkins, if they'd played teams that are that like strong, competitive 15 to 20 range, if they would have walked away from that game with a win, just out of preparedness alone.
Well, hey, Karson, they did enter the fourth quarter with the lead. Okay.
Yeah, but exactly my point, right? Like the fourth quarter is when you close. And if you haven't had to close, if you've been up 22-2 before, you don't know how to close, you know?
Hey, I see what you're saying. I agree. Hey, no one was harder on them based on their weak schedule than I was, but I've turned a little bit, okay? I thought going into that game yesterday that they were going to lose by 10. I was like, there's no way this is even going to be a close game. And somehow, some way it was. Okay, and well, I know the way, and I'm going to show you, I'm going to explain to you the way in which it was a close game, okay? But before I get to that, they got outscored 5-1. Was it 5-1? Yeah, 5-1 in the fourth quarter. I think that's really, that just makes your point about the schedule not being prepared. I think that's, that just exemplifies it right there. I mean, nothing prepares you for a close game other than being in close games. Okay, you can't simulate it in practice. You can't simulate it at all. You have to get the game experience, the real life experience, and they clearly did not have that.
I agree.
So that was tough. I was very impressed with them. I have to say I am very impressed with Clemson. I'm not even going to talk about their first few games because I don't care. Like you said, they played teams that weren't very good. But for them to go into to Notre Dame on the road, first ACC opponent, and they led a lot of that first half. Okay, they led going into the fourth quarter. That was impressive. They could. I mean, if the game was 3 quarters, we'd be having a whole another story right now. We'd be having a whole another conversation. Okay. And Karson would be armless, okay, and without a child.
And without a firstborn child.
So Clemson, I was very impressed. Like I said, I thought they were going to lose. I thought it was going to be pretty one-sided. It wasn't that way at all. And I'm going to tell you why. Their goalie, Emily Lamparter, I honestly didn't know who she was going into the game. And I didn't know this. Did you know that she transferred from Maryland?
No.
Yeah, she backed up. Yeah, she backed up Emily Sterling. She had 16 saves. That is insane. Okay.
Wow.
16 saves, standing on her head, as the commentators like to say. Okay, yeah. She had a hell of a game. Respect her. Like I said, I didn't know who she was going into the game, but I know who she is now, and everyone knows who she is now because that's a hell of a performance right there. 16 saves against an ACC school on the road. Whoo-wee. Props to Emily Lamparter. And hey, Clemson, they're going to be all right. They're going to be all right. I think the Karson. Yeah. What are your feelings on? What do you think the rest of their season is like?
Yeah, I think that we just might have the same problem. Like now that they felt the close game in Notre Dame, so that's good. And I think that the rest of their season is going to heavily depend on if they can remember that feeling and carry it into other ACC teams. I think, honestly, with that outcome, I think that Louisville might be in trouble. I think that Clemson. I think Louisville, Pittsburgh, those kinds of teams, Clemson's going to be. They've shown that they can hold games with. So I think that those two teams probably are in trouble. And I think they've shown they have potential to maybe come out there and just all of a sudden upset one of the top ACC schools, that they have that potential. They have the talent. Clearly, their goalie can make 16 saves in this game. She can do it again in another one. So I think that their season is, with that outcome, looks better than we originally anticipated. But I do think that the weakness of their schedule surrounding those ACC games will be kind of something that haunts them for the rest of it. If that makes sense.
Okay, so I want your opinion on this. So yes, they have a weak non-conference schedule, but once they get into ACC play and they're playing ACC after ACC after ACC, don't you think that eventually it's gonna forget about the rest of their schedule and eventually, something's got to click?
Yeah, kind of. So there's also playing somebody winning 22-1 and losing 15-5 are the same. Like you learn the same from, I think. You don't learn the same amount. I think you definitely learn more from losing 15-5. But I do think that, like, if they, I don't know exactly on their schedule off the top of my head, but if they play like a Boston College, North Carolina, Syracuse, like back to back to back, I don't expect much more growth from the Boston College. If they lose, say 15-5, 12-4, whatever, I don't expect a ton of growth from those 3 games back to back to back. Does that make sense?
What?
And I know you're looking at me like crazy, but I've been the team that's 4-12, and I can tell you right now, when you're 4-12 in teams that against games that matter, it's not about, you learn less than you do about just like you get defeated. Like, it's tough. You don't go into the Syracuse after losing to Duke and you lose to North Carolina by 10. You don't go into the Syracuse game thinking I'm gonna win by 5. I can tell you, I've been there. I've had that experience. That's not how it goes.
Karson, I cannot disagree with you. What in the world?
You didn't play. I'm telling you, that's how it goes.
Are you hearing the words coming out of your mouth right now?
Yes, and I played like that. I was 4-12 my freshman year. I know this.
Karson. I see what you're saying. I can't discredit what you're saying because obviously you played at the D1 level. I did not. But as we talked about with Xavier, you want growth game after game. This is a first-year program in Clemson. You want growth game after game. If they are doing that,
I don't get it. That doesn't mean they're going to win.
I'm not saying they have to win, but I'm saying that at some point their schedule, the weakness of their early season schedule is not going to affect how they play in their last 3 or 4 ACC games of the season, in my opinion.
Oh, I see what you're saying. No, I agree. I think that they'll play fine, but I think that if they had more preparation against those teams, like if they were growing faster earlier, like they're not going to have time to grow at the end of the season to beat those teams. You know what I'm saying? Like if they were doing anything before that to prepare, you'd think they had a better chance, I think, than them trying to learn during the ACC play, I guess is my point.
We're going to have to agree to disagree on this one, Karson. But hey, one thing I do agree with that you mentioned Pitt and Louisville. I think you might have flown to Utah and taken a peek at my notes because I have written down, I think they will win at least 2 ACC games, which is more than I thought they were going to at the start of the season. Okay. I'm really high on Notre Dame. Okay. We're going to talk about them in a little bit. But for them to go on the road, I think at number 14, Notre Dame, they could have won the game. And so I think that they will win at least 2 of 3 when it comes to these 3 games. Pittsburgh, Virginia Tech, who looked damn good against Carolina, and Louisville. Virginia Tech, I think they're a little bit of a wild card. They lost to Mercer, but then they played really well against North Carolina. So I don't know how you judge them at this point in the season. But Pitt and Louisville, like you said, they could be in trouble when they play Clemson, especially Pitt. Pitt does not look good.
I agree. I think that those 2 teams should be worried. And I think that especially Pitt, because they kind of had a good season last year. Like I was high on them. I mean, they were losing games, but they weren't losing them that badly, and they looked good when they were playing.
Well, they lost a lot of talent.
They did. No, they did. They lost Paige Petty, right? She's gone.
Yeah, Paige Payday Petty gone, and Paulina DeFada gone.
Yeah, I think it would just be a bummer. I would be really sad to see them at the bottom of the ACC this year, but I do think that they have to worry about. They have to look out for Clemson.
Yeah, I mean, they lost to Binghamton. And it wasn't even that close in the second half.
Yeah, I did see that.
Anyways, moving on to a team you know oh so well, the Drexel Dragons. Let me say, Karson did not respond to our own poll and say that she wanted to talk about Drexel. This came from a current Drexel player, okay? We're not going to name names. So anyways, Drexel. Let me give you a little recap. 2-2 on the season. Started 2-0. They're coming off back-to-back Big Ten losses, 15-6 to Penn State, 15-9 to Maryland. And I think that, they looked pretty good in the second half. But really, the quarters 2 through 4 against Maryland. First quarter was a little bit rough, but as they settled in, it was pretty close. What are your thoughts on the Drexel Dragons in 2023?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think they have the same schedule problem, honestly, that Clemson does. I think that they played to make a jump from Binghamton and Wagner to Penn State is a really tough jump to make, and you end up really confident, and then you go play Penn State, and I think you lose 15-6. Like, I think that's just what happens. You're not ready to play a team like that, and it's unfortunate because you're right. They had such a good second half, end of the three quarters against Maryland, that like they have that in them. So I think I almost wish those games would have been switched. I wish they would have played Maryland and then Penn State, because they needed to see tough competition before they went and played Penn State. And Penn State's beatable. Like, that's a team we've beat before. They can beat them. They have firepower. Like, they have people that can score. Corinne Bernard put up 11. Grace Harding's put up 10. Haley's put up 7 in 4 games. Like, those are good numbers. They have people that can score. Their pretty much entire defense is returning veterans. They have the draw specialist in Marissa. So, like, they have people and they have talent. So I want them to have that Penn State game back, because I think that it could go a lot better than 15-6. I mean, they lost to Maryland by less than they lost to Penn State. Like, that says a lot. But I think that shows growth. Like, I think that's showing growth in this program. And I mean, I don't want to call it a new team, but like, this is a young team that they're playing with right now. They don't have young and experienced. They don't have a ton of people. Obviously we graduated a lot of people last year. So I think the first couple of games are going to be a learning experience of, scoring, who's going to score, how do you get people open, and they're doing that, and I'm proud of them for doing that. And I'm really excited.
Can I jump in real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
You said, how do you get people open? I'll tell you how you get people open. You get the ball to Corinne Bednarik and you get the hell out the way.
No, that's true. That's absolutely true. She's been on fire. I mean, she's been putting in. That girl works so hard that I'm just so happy for her that it's actually coming to fruition. And I'm really excited for their conference play, because games like Towson, Hofstra, those sorts of games, I think are, especially Towson specifically, I think is going to be really fun to watch, because it'll be fun to see how they are.
For sure. It'll be a fun conference. And Corinne Bednarik, she's a star. She is a star, okay? And I'm not going to point out her goal or assist numbers. I'm just going to tell you one stat that is super impressive with her. She only has 3 turnovers in 4 games this season, and she handles the ball a lot for them. She's their number 1 scorer, and usually the more you handle the ball, the more you turn it over. But it must be something in the gloves that she's wearing, because she don't turn the ball over. She don't lose the ball. It goes in and out of her stick whenever she wants it to, not unintentionally, okay? She's a beast. I love Corinne Bednarik, okay? And I just love Corinne Bednarik. I'm jealous that Karson got to watch her play for a few years in person. I have not gotten to see her play in person yet, because I'm serious. She is a star. Okay, if she played at some of these bigger schools, she would have a lot more notoriety when it comes to the mainstream media. Okay, because she is a beast. Okay, I cannot speak highly enough of number 2 for Drexel. Okay, and I feel like a theme of this episode is just growth, game to game, throughout the season. Okay, you mentioned it again, and like you said, they were better from the Penn State game to the Maryland game. And I think that's what is to be expected from any team, at least early in the season. You expect growth. Eventually you get to a point in the season where a team is who they are. They just are who they are, which I think is what you were kind of saying earlier. Maybe now that I think about it. But anyways, sticking with Drexel, against Maryland compared to the Penn State game, they had more shots on goal. They had fewer turnovers, only 8 turnovers against Maryland's defense. That is extremely impressive. That's a recipe to pull an upset. Okay, they didn't do it, but I'll get to why they didn't do it. Okay, and they had a better clearing percentage against Maryland than they did against Drexel. Those are 3 very important phases of the game. So they got better. Like I said, the first quarter was a little rough. I know you weren't too impressed with them in the first quarter, but I think, overall a good performance from Drexel. I think they have a lot to learn, that's a top 5 team in Maryland. That's a team who Drexel alum, chose to win the national championship entering the season.
Yeah, I do have a little bit of insight, and I think that walking away from that game, they were really happy with the way they played. The coaches are really happy with the way they played, which is good. And I think that's the way it should be, because that'll be huge momentum for going into the season, is not taking that game as a loss instead of just like looking at all the really positive things they did in that game. And hopefully that'll carry over to Hopkins, because they could get a win over Hopkins. I think their season is looking sharp.
That will be a very interesting game. Okay, Hopkins, they're coming off 2 close losses, one to Loyola and then one in heartbreaking fashion, okay, to Penn. If you have not seen the ending of that game, you got to go watch it on Instagram. Okay, it's bonkers, okay? And a ref got taken out by the ball. Headshots only, you feel me? So anyways, I think they're going to lose to Hopkins, just to be honest. I think Hopkins, I think their coaching staff is one of the best in the country. I just think they are so well coached. But if Drexel does not turn the ball over, you can beat anyone you play, in my opinion. So I
just wish they weren't playing LIU. Oh no, you're good. I wish they weren't playing LIU first. It's the same stuff. Like, they're going Maryland and now they're playing LIU, and then they're gonna go play Hopkins. And I was just talking to Corinne and I was like, please, please, please keep this Maryland game in your head. Like, go play LIU and then erase it from your memory, and then keep Maryland in your head and then go play Hopkins. I was like, I just wish that they didn't have this middle game.
It's very interesting to hear you talk about these schedules. You have a very unique viewpoint on it.
I think they're important. I think because of like the way that Jill set up her schedules, I just love, like, I think that it helped us so much grow as a team. So I'm very particular about them.
Okay, let me push back a little.
Maybe it doesn't matter at all.
Yes. Okay, I have to push back. So if they played Penn State, Maryland, and Johns Hopkins 3 straight games, those are tyrant, those are grueling games. You have to have lesser competition mixed in your schedule, don't you?
They're spread out though. Like, it's not like Maryland was Wednesday. I think now Penn State's like, or Hopkins is like I think LIU is this next weekend thing. I think they're like, I think LIU is Wednesday, yeah. Yeah, so I think I agree with you if it was like Wednesday, Friday, or like a Friday, Sunday, then like throwing LIU on Sunday and then playing, you know what I mean? Like, I think that makes more sense. But when you're playing Hopkins now 2 weeks, almost 2.5 weeks after Maryland, I think is too far of a gap. Does that make sense? Like, I think I would have done, now granted that I've never been a head coach nor ever made a schedule, so I'm totally just making this up as I go. But I think that they probably should have had that at least a little bit closer. Maybe not back to back like a Friday, Sunday, but at least like Friday, Sunday, Sunday or something. If that makes sense.
Well, unfortunately, the budget kind of comes into play with a lot of the scheduling in terms of, you know, how many nights you're going to be in a hotel and the you know, the meals on the road. So I feel like a lot of the smaller teams really have to focus on that a lot more than, you know, the top 5 teams in the country.
Probably true.
So one thing that I would like to see Drexel improve, one area, is the draw. I know you mentioned earlier that you thought that was, you know, they have a draw specialist. But against Maryland and Penn State, they got handled at the draw control. 20-8 against Maryland and 17-8 against Penn State. And so, I mean, they lost to Maryland by 6 goals. They won 12 fewer draw controls. I mean, if they can even get that down to 7 or 8, who knows what the game looks like. And so they've got to improve at the draw. And I think what makes them interesting is they don't have to beat a Maryland. They don't have to beat a Johns Hopkins. They just have to beat the teams in their conference and get an automatic bid. So that way, when they do go to the NCAA tournament, if they win it, they're ready to go. And that's why their scheduling, playing these teams, is very important. So they need to be better at the draw, and they need to be better at the draw against teams that they are the underdog against, because you got to win the draw to pull upsets.
No, I agree. You don't have to have 8 turnovers if you're winning at least 6 more draws. You know what I mean? Like, those can balance each other out a little bit more. Right. And also, I mean, the turnovers are really, really low, but I also think that to beat big teams like that, you also have to take risks. So I didn't watch it close. I was in class when it was going on, trying to watch it. But I'll have to keep an eye on whether those turnovers are low. What the combination is of like risk and reward sort of situation on their offense.
True. Okay, fifth and final teams submitted by SB_Sonic, not SONIC, like Sonic the Hedgehog or Sonic the fast food place, which sounds really good right now, but SONEK. Okay. Notre Dame. Mr. Sonic thinks that Notre Dame is overrated. Do you agree, Karson?
No. I think. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. No, I was just going to say, please tell Mr. Sonic why you disagree.
Okay, so I think sitting at 3-1 is. I mean, they only lost to Northwestern 18-4, right? I mean, that's
18-14.
Northwestern 18-14. Sorry, yeah, 18-14. And Northwestern is killing it right now. I mean, they feel like, in my opinion, like they're on fire. This team feels like they just beat Boston College. They lost to Syracuse by 1. I think holding a firepower Northwestern 18-14 personally is enough to not make you overrated. I think that's really impressive. That's very impressive for me, for Notre Dame. They have these stars in Choma, Wallach, and Ahern. They combined for 15 points against Northwestern in the 3 of them. I think when you have such a dynamic offense like that, you can't be overrated, because who do you stop? You can't stop. You're not going to have your 3 one of them is going to be open, and one of them is going to find a way to score. So I think that's really impressive. I do wish they'd beaten Clemson by more, but maybe that was more impressive of Clemson than it was on Notre Dame. But I mean, as of last week, they were ranked 15th. Obviously, the rankings haven't come out yet for this Tuesday, and I think 15th is a very reasonable spot for Notre Dame. So no, I don't think that they're overrated.
I agree. Mr. Sonic, I thank you for listening. I'm very happy you enjoyed the podcast, but I also have to disagree with you. So please do not, hit the pause button. Please do not close out your podcast app right now as this is happening. Okay.
Follow us.
So like you said, Notre Dame 3-1. Their only losses to Northwestern. Okay. Izzy Skane had a career high in goals that game. She had 10 freaking goals. Okay. I mean, if you take her off the field, they could have won the game, which obviously I know you can't just take her off the field. But if they played Northwestern again, you'd have to think that Izzy Skane's not going to go for 10 goals. You'd have to think that the coaching staff for Notre Dame would do something to make sure that, like Boston College did, and held her to 0 shots in the first half, you have to think they would be able to pull part of that game plan and implement it, okay? Because 10 goals, if someone scores 10 goals, you expect that team to win the game, correct?
Yes, okay, correct. So, they should, or everyone else is really not trying.
Yeah. So, Jackie Wolak, Casey Choma, Madison Ahern, they're a big 3. I would like to see Ahern be a little more aggressive. I think she's a phenomenal player. I think if she's a little more aggressive, that adds a different element to their offense. They are going to need a 4th scorer to step up consistently, because the more scores you have, the more scores that are threats, the better your offense is going to be. The less quickly the slide is going to come, or the more hesitant they'll be to double team someone. So I think they need some more depth offensively. But with Wallach, Choma, and Ahern, if they each put up 4 or 5 goals in a game, you're sitting in a pretty good spot. So
yeah.
Also Lily Callahan in goal. She's holding it down for them. She has more saves than goals allowed, replacing Bridget Dehan. Not an easy thing to do, and she's doing a good job. She's playing good. So I have a question for you. You said it might have been more good on Clemson than bad on Notre Dame. I don't think it has to be bad on Notre Dame, because Clemson's goalie had 16 saves. I mean, I feel like it's good on Clemson, good on Notre Dame. Notre Dame overcame a goalie having 16 stops against them. Okay. So my question for you is, it cannot be just good on both teams?
No, that's what I meant. I meant I meant that it wasn't Notre Dame playing bad, it was Clemson playing good. That's what I meant. Like, Notre Dame was playing good, Clemson was playing good. That's why it was the margin was smaller than we expected. That's what I meant.
Fair.
I meant it was more Clemson playing good than Notre Dame playing bad. That's what I meant.
Okay, awesome. I just wanted to ask that, because I feel like in a lot of sports and analysis for other sports, they always, whenever they put up one team, they put another team down. I don't think that's always the case.
No, that's not what I was doing. I think that it was just Clemson's goalie standing on her head. It wasn't that Notre Dame was playing bad.
Okay, I would just wanted to ask that. Okay, I have another question for you. This one, I'm very interested. I'm always interested to hear what you have to say. Obviously, you're the co-host. Syracuse, Boston College, North Carolina. Does Notre Dame beat one of those teams this season? Just one.
I think it's tough. I literally have written down potential for an upset. I think that they have that potential. I think they are good. They have firepower. Who's to say those girls don't pop off and go ahead? I mean, I think all it would take is Boston College, Northwestern, or Boston College, Syracuse, North Carolina, having not a great day, not even a bad day, just not their best day, where they can't figure out how to respond. Things aren't going their way. I think if one of those teams has not even a bad performance, but just an unlucky day against Notre Dame, I think they could win one of those. Which,
I agree.
Let's not forget, I did pick them as my ACC champions somehow, somewhere down the road. So hopefully, yes.
Well, yes, you did pick them, but then you said that you forgot about Syracuse. So, you got to work on that preparation.
Yeah, Syracuse is really my answer, but Notre Dame's my real answer. If they go ahead and do it, then I'm taking them back.
Trying to play both teams here. Okay, listen, you already know who I'm rolling with in the ACC, and we're gonna get to them because I got a lot to say about. Well, not a lot to say. I got some stuff to say about it. Okay, so anyways, I agree with you. I think Notre Dame can beat any team on any given day. I think they just have that ability, and I think that's what's going to make them a very interesting team come tournament time. Do I think that? And even in the regular season, do I think that they can piece, say, 3 wins together, 3 huge wins together? I don't think they can piece 3 together, but I think they can definitely get 1 and possibly 2. And then if you get 2, you're feeling good. You might be able to get that 3rd one just because you're just on a high, on the just, oh my gosh, I'm on cloud 9 because we just won, 2 big games. So I think Notre Dame, very interesting team. I think they're a little bit of a wild card.
No, I agree. I think that they have a ton of talent. Like, I think that they just haven't been those top 5 programs in so long that people are kind of like, Notre Dame will be Notre Dame, like whatever. Yeah. But if you look at their team, like they have a ton of talent that could step up and lead to a great team.
I think that's a great point. I think it's hard to pick a team to beat someone. It's hard to pick Notre Dame in this case to beat, like it's hard to just pick them outright to say, oh, they're going to beat Syracuse, Boston College, or North Carolina, just because those teams are just, I feel like they're a step above, not much, but I feel like they're a step above, and it's hard to believe in someone until they do it. You know what I'm saying? And obviously over the past few seasons, they've beaten these teams here and there, but it's still just hard. They haven't done it consistently. So it's hard to say, oh, they're going to do it,
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's exactly, like, no one's a top 5 team until you're a top 5 team. So it's like, but you got to get there somehow, and that's by beating teams, but those are hard to predict. So
for sure. Hey, that's why we love sports, because upsets happen all the time.
Exactly.
All right, moving on to topic number 2, earlier predictions. Were we right or wrong? So Mr. Sonic says we were correct on Villanova. Both of us picking them. I got to be honest, Karson, we're both looking pretty good right now.
Oh, yeah, we hit that one. Nail, here's the head of the hammer. We hit that one right on the head. I think I'm so proud of us for that one. I actually had the pleasure. I was at their game against Navy last night.
Nice.
And freezing my butt off, but it was so fun to watch. And I was so proud of them and so happy for Jill. And I mean, they have it. Like, they have this little bit of an it factor that, I mean, they're not going to go freaking beat to Syracuse right off the bat. Don't get me wrong. But I think they're feeling themselves. Like, you can just tell in the way they're celebrating on the sidelines. You can tell in the way that how confident they are in picking up the ball. And just don't look afraid. Like, there's no fear ever. And even when they were 10-10 with 30 seconds left in the game, like, did they go in double overtime? Yes. Like, did that? But I just think that they never really looked scared by it. And even when, I mean, Navy had opportunity to score and they didn't just crumble, which is kind of, I think, what we would have expected from them last year is like, oh, well, Navy got the ball. All right, we tried. Like, I think that they didn't crumble and they stood strong and they believed in themselves. Like, just like Jill said, like, that belief that they were going to win that game carried all the way through double overtime. You could see it in them. Yeah, I think we were spot on with Villanova. I think this is going to be a great season for them. And I think, like, how are we right? I think we were right because of Jill Bachelor's history, and we've watched how she's transformed teams. I mean, last year was such a growth year for them. It was obvious it was a growth year from them. And, just with our predictions, like, if we knew if history held true, if Jill could do what she'd done for the last 2 teams, like, this was going to be their season. And we were right. So far, we were right.
Yes. Listeners, Karson and I cannot tell the future, but we can tell when a team is going to have a good season. Okay, I got to be honest. I feel like it was kind of an easy pick, to be honest, just because of Jill Bachelor. I feel like it was an easy pick. So they're 4-0, and they have an interesting 3-game stretch coming up. They're going out west. They have at USC, at San Diego State, and then they go back home to play Maryland at home. That's going to be a very important 3-game stretch for them, because if they don't win the Big East, if they win at least one of the big games against USC or Maryland. That'll be huge in helping them build their resume for a bid to the NCAA tournament, an open bid. So I think I expect them to win 2 out of the 3. I think they're going to beat San Diego State. And if they can beat USC or Maryland, I think that'll be huge for them for their postseason chances. Which one do you think they're more likely to beat, USC or Maryland?
I agree with you that they need to come out of that 3-game stretch 2-1 for just to keep proving us right, but also for them in their season. They'd have to be 2-1. I don't know. I think probably USC, only because Maryland is just like a big name and something that could be difficult to overcome mentally. They're just starting to win their games in overtime. Like, they're just starting to close. I don't know if asking for a Maryland win might be too much at this point, just by the name itself. So I would say USC, but Maryland's not impressed me quite as much as I was expecting them to. So my final answer for you is USC. I don't want to make it wishy-washy, but yeah, USC. That's my answer.
Hey, that is totally fair. I think that I'm just pulling up Maryland and the schedule for Villanova real quick. Let's see. So I think it's kind of like Notre Dame. It's hard to pick Villanova to say, oh, they're going to beat Maryland. But I think it'll be close for a little bit. I really do. I think Maryland, they're an interesting team. So they lost to Syracuse in a game that wasn't too impressive. They just beat Florida, Florida looked great against Michigan at the start of the season, looked bad against North Carolina, and looked good yesterday against Maryland. And so that's a hard one. I think, let's see. So that's a Saturday game at 1:00. Why could that game not be a night game? They need to change that to a night game right now. Okay. Because you're going to have undefeated Villanova. They might be undefeated going into that game if they beat USC. And that is just like a recipe for an upset. Undefeated, underdog, at home against the big dog, okay? And let me say this. Maryland has 3 games before they play Villanova. They have at James Madison, at home against Denver, and then against William & Mary. So it'll be interesting to see what their record is going into that game. They could very well still only have 1 loss. But Villanova, listen, I think they're going to go 2-1 in that stretch as well. I think they're going to beat USC and lose to Maryland. But I think that Maryland game is going to be close for a little bit. I don't know if it's going to be close for a quarter or half or 3/4, but it's going to be close for a little bit before Maryland pulls away. And I think that's going to be a huge learning game for Villanova, which again will help them later in the season. That's not a game that if they lose, Villanova's not good, they lost to Maryland. If anyone says that, clown behavior, okay. And guess what? Denver hasn't looked as good as Denver has in the past few years. So, hey, they might win the Big East.
Yeah. No, they could. And I think I agree with you. I think after, by the time we get to that game, it's very far out. We'll know a lot more about what that game's going to look like and what that score is going to look like based on these teams that Maryland has to play. Because right now they're still pretty built up just from last year and stuff like that. So I think that game will be a little easier to call as we get closer. But I mean, Villanova looks really, really sharp. Their offense looks like it's firing on all cylinders. Really, to beat a team like Denver, you just have to figure out their defense at some point. And if someone's going to figure out, I'd give it to Jill. So we'll see. Hopefully, I'm cheering for them.
Well, we've definitely given Villanova their flowers, and I want to give more flowers out. Okay, this is not the Bachelor or the Bachelorette where we're just giving out flowers to everyone. But guess what? Freshman Elena Torres is out here balling. Okay, 2nd on the team in goals, 3rd on the team in assists, and only 3 turnovers. Okay. The turnover stat is what I look to for players like we did with Corinne Bednarik. There are so many unnecessary, unforced turnovers that you see across the country in every single game. So if you have a young player or even a senior like Bednarik, if they're not turning the ball over, that impresses the heck out of me. And she's only a freshman. I think she's won back-to-back Freshmen's of the Week awards. Mm-hmm. Super impressive. And shout out to Elena Torres. And guess what? She follows lacrosse extras, so she holds a special place in our hearts. Okay, just saying. Hey, if everyone else can follow lacrosse extras and hold a special place in our hearts as well. So, anyways, so that's Villanova. Duke, we got to talk about Duke. Okay, listen, they're 3-1. They look good for the first 3 games. The only real test they had was against Navy in the season opener. They look good. They played Boston College over the weekend, and I sent Karson a message. I sent Abby Sheklow a message, and I said, listen up real close, fellas. Okay, because when Duke wins this game, I'm going to let you join the bandwagon free of charge. Okay. And it didn't work out that way, unfortunately. Well, unfortunately for Duke, fortunately for Boston College. Let me just say this before Karson, you come and say, David, you're an idiot. I knew you were wrong. You're crazy, blah, blah, blah. Okay, listen up real good now. Okay. They lost that game 17-8. I'll be the first to say their offense did not get the job done. Their offense was not good yesterday. Okay. But they lost the game before it started. And when the broadcast started, the life was sucked. Literally, I felt like my stomach was empty when the broadcast started, because when they put the camera on the goalkeeper for Duke and it wasn't Sophia LaRose and it wasn't Kennedy Everson, I'm thinking, what the hell is going on here? Like, literally, I had the life sucked out of me, because going into that game, that was such a huge game. But then when you go in without your starter, without your backup, who's just as capable of being a starter as LaRose, and you have your third goalie out there, no offense, but that's a huge mental hurdle to overcome as a player on the team, because you know going into a game when you're shorthanded, it's tough, okay? And for you to be on your third goalie, I have no clue why LaRose didn't play, no clue why Everson didn't play. Maybe they're injured, maybe they got sick, I don't know. But that's the only thing I'm going to point to and say, well, this game's kind of a wash in my opinion. I'm not just saying that because I picked Duke to win the ACC the national championship. They didn't have their top two goalies on the road against a top 5 opponent, okay? I just feel like you can't even really make an opinion on the team as a whole off of that one game. Now, listen, like I said, their offense was not good. Their offense did not get the job done. Okay, but as a whole, it's hard for me to say, oh, Duke is levels below Boston College. Duke is not on their level at all. It's hard for me to say that when you don't have your starter or your backup goalie on the road, top 5 team, ACC school.
No, you'll be happy to hear this. I was nice to you. I mean, the loss to Boston College was ugly, right? Like, that's just not what we want to see out of Duke for the rest of the season. I think everyone watching it knew it was ugly. They haven't had much of an opportunity to prove ourselves. Other than that, like, that was the game to see if they're championship contenders. Unfortunately, it didn't work out. But they're not looking star-studded to me yet. Like, I don't think that you watch that Duke team, even against those other 4, and you're like, they're going to win a national championship. But with that being said, I think it's too early to write them off. I have that written down. I think that it's too early to tell. Like, just like you said, like, I don't think that game means that you write them off against Boston College. I don't think that means you write them out of a Final Four. I think that it's early in the season. I think you still have your Duke Blue Devils to cheer for. I don't think that anything about that game means that they're out for the season. I think that it was just a tough game with their third string goalie. And again, something to learn from. Of course, I'm sure that they learned something from that. And so no, I think it's too early to call whether we were right about that or whether you were right about that or not. I think that
I was about to say, we got a we coming out now.
I'll be more patient with you before I tell you I told you so. I'll give you a couple more games, because I think it's too early to call whether or not they're our national champions or not.
So we are in agreement. Okay, the verdict is not out yet on the Duke Blue Devils. I have written down for them TBD, to be determined. Okay. I think, giving up 17 goals with your third goalie, and they even went to their fourth goalie in the second half, that I can let that go, because their goalie, no offense to her, she was just very slow to react to any shots that were coming to her. Just very slow to react. Their offense was disappointing. Their offense did not get the job done. Olivia Carner, I'm not sure how much she played or what was going on with that. She only had one shot. I wasn't able to watch a whole lot of the second half, so I'm not sure. It was a kind of a weird vibe for Duke yesterday, to be honest. But I think their offense has to be better. You got to score more than 8 goals if you're going to beat teams in the ACC. So their offense has to be better. I think they will be better. But hey, we'll see. The good thing about the ACC is you get a chance to redeem yourself real fast.
Yeah.
So that'll be exciting. So winding down on this episode, we have 2 more topics, and they will each not take too very long. Way too early Final Four contenders submitted by Sophia Ayano. Hopefully I'm saying that right. Thank you. And first off, before we answer this, I just want to say thank you to everyone that submitted topics, because it literally means the world to me and Karson that you listen to the show, you enjoy the show. Every time we get a good comment or good feedback, I send it to Karson right away. Every time we gain subscribers, I'm letting Karson know. So it literally means a lot that you listen, that you care what we have to say. So thank you very much for that. So Karson, who are let me just preface this, way too early, Final Four contenders?
I think you're going to make fun of me for this I think that, like we've said before, it's hard to say teams that haven't been in the top 5 before, because you're like, I'm not going to just throw somebody in there because I think that they could have a good season. So my top 4 are very basic. Like, they're just run of the mill, just because I just don't have enough confidence in anybody yet to put them in beating a UNC or Syracuse Northwestern.
Mine are too. So we're in agreement.
Yeah. my top 4 right now. Well, my top 3, I was sure about Northwestern, Syracuse, UNC. I put those in my Final Four. I think you can't write UNC out. They have a ton of experience. Jenny Levy is amazing. And they've been doing the job. I mean, they ran through JMU and Florida, who are both ranked opponents. So those are I was sure about those 3. I really decide between Boston College, Maryland, and I threw Stony Brook in there too, even though I flew. But so I was sure about Northwestern, Syracuse, UNC. I'm going to go Maryland just because I picked them as my national champion, so I'm supporting them. But I could see Boston College and Stony Brook being in that mix as well.
Yeah, so I agree. I have UNC and Syracuse. I think pretty confident in those. I have BC and I have Northwestern or Maryland. I don't know which one. I don't think it really depends on how the bracket comes out, who the top 4 seeds are. That really is, because you have UNC, Syracuse, Northwestern, Boston College, Maryland. That's 5 teams. There are only 4 top seeds. So, and if you're if you're the 5th team and you're the odd man out, you got to play one of those 4 teams just to get to the Final Four. So, it's really hard to say. It's way too early. But this was submitted, so we are going to give our best guesses. So I have UNC, Syracuse, Boston College, like I said, and then Northwestern or Maryland. Maryland's hard for me right now. They're a little inconsistent.
That's my problem.
Personally, just off the eye test, I think Northwestern's better, which I can't believe I'm saying that, but I think Northwestern's better.
No, I agree with you. That's what I picked them as my national champion. I couldn't even securely put them in the top 4 right now. They haven't super impressed me recently, so I'm still waiting to be confident in that choice.
For sure. And the reason I have Northwestern or Maryland instead of the 3 ACC teams, I think Syracuse is better than Boston College. So I think just based on skill level, I would put them above Boston College. But I'm not going to bet against Acacia Walker-Weinstein. I'm not going to bet against her in any way, shape, or form. And not to say that I'm betting against Kelly Monty-Hiller or Kathy Reese, but I'm willing to bet against them more than I am right now against Acacia Walker-Weinstein, because they've been to 5 straight natties.
It's true. No, that's
Jordan
fair.
Shrug.
That's completely fair.
Okay, to make things interesting, of your choices, who would you say if one of these teams doesn't make it, it's going to be this team? Who would that team be?
Well, I'll stick with Maryland as my 4th one. Then, I mean, right now it's mine's Maryland. I just am not super confident in them. In my way too early, obviously. We're only 3 or 4 games in, but I have not been super. I think Maryland could fall apart in a tight game right now, is my opinion.
Okay, that's fair. I think what makes this super interesting is I feel like there's a path for each one of these teams not to make the Final Four. I think with Syracuse, it's their goalie play. Can Delaney Schweitzer continue playing at a super high level? With Maryland, 1, can they be consistent? And 2, are they good enough? Is what we saw against Syracuse, is that just how it is, or was that a down game for them? So we don't know about Maryland yet. With Northwestern, they could have easily beat Syracuse. So I feel like I'm pretty confident in them right now. And with UNC, do they have the firepower that it's going to take to score? Their defense is going to be fine. Their goalie play is fine. But do they have the firepower? If you watch their game against Virginia Tech, in the first quarter, I think they put up 4 or 5 goals, and it was deja vu, just off-ball cuts. Every single goal, off-ball cut, off-ball cut. when you play a team that is better defensively, no offense to Virginia Tech, I love Mary Griffin, but when you play a team that's better defensively, and Virginia Tech did figure it out, but you got to play 4 quarters against a team like North Carolina to beat them. And so when they play better teams and they play teams that might have better game plans going in and that might be more prepared from the opening draw, can they do enough offensively if they're not getting players open off ball? I think that's a legit question that I think is going to be interesting to see. BC, like really what it comes down to for me with them is they have Belle Smith and they have Acacia Walker-Weinstein. I think that they, so far this season, have been the most consistent team in terms of game in, game out. And I think that's to be expected because they have a lot of experience on that team. They have young players mixed in, but they have a lot of experience. The Weeks sisters, Rachel Hall, Jen Medjid, Belle Smith. They have a Hasselback who's older. Martello, Weeks, Hunter Roman. They have so much game experience. So I think BC is going to be fine. But hey, who knows?
Yeah, it's too early. But no, I agree. I think, I think any of those teams could be any of those teams on a given day. Like I think that's going to be just how the chips fall. Like you said, I think the bracket's going to have a huge thing to do with it. So
for sure. Okay, before we move on, one final question for you. I have 3 teams: Florida, Loyola, and Virginia. Of those 3 teams, which do you think would be most likely to make a surprise run into the Final Four?
I would Florida, but honestly, I was at their UNC game, and I mean, I'm sure it was just a bad game. Maybe it was an off day, but it wasn't good. I mean, their turnovers were sloppy, is why I can't make myself say them, because it was like overthrown balls in the midfield. It was throwing the ball out of bounds. It was making dumb decisions. Like they just looked sloppy. It wasn't UNC having these lights out. It was them, like they were degrading themselves. And so I'm gonna say Loyola, because I would have said Florida 3 weeks ago, but honestly, mine right now is Loyola. They've impressed me.
Hey, I think.
What about you?
Yeah, I think Loyola is a good answer. So I am going to go with Florida. I want to go with UVA, to be honest with you, because Rachel Clark, my God, she is incredible. Okay, she is a star for them. She does not have a bigger following? It kind of blows my mind. She is a Team STX athlete, so good for her. But she is a star for them. I'm going to go with Florida. I think they have Sarah Resnick and Cage, and that's why I'm going with them. She, even against Florida, when the rest of the team was junk, okay, I mean junk, she was still pretty dang good, and she kept them in that game for a long time, even late in the third quarter when they got a few back-to-back goals, and you're like, oh my gosh, they're within 4 or 5. You're like, how is this happening? Because the first half was god-awful, okay? It's because Sarah Resnick was keeping them in the game. She was the only one that showed up in Chapel Hill that day. I believe in Sarah Resnick, and I believe that she could be the difference in them making the Final Four versus the other teams, because she is one of the best goalies in the country. And Virginia, Ashley Vernon, good goalie. Loyola, Spence, good goalie. But in my opinion, I think Resnick is a great goalie, and I have faith in her. And also Emma Lapinto, no one had a good game against North Carolina, but I have faith that their offense, if they had a do-over, would be better. Okay, I just have faith in that.
No, I agree. I mean, and Sarah Resnick like rallies that team every time she make a save. They were down by like 7. Every time she make a save, the whole sideline's like Sarah Resnick. I mean, so if you have that kind of like people behind you, then you can't count them out for sure.
Well, she makes 6 save after 6 save. It's amazing. So, okay, 4th and final topic submitted by Mia Mickle. Tips for beginners. Karson, the floor is yours. I have one thing that I'll say, but obviously this is more on you than me. So
I wasn't sure if they meant like recruiting advice or like playing, so I went with playing.
Okay.
But I can give
That's
my
how
2
I took
cents
it.
about
So
recruiting.
we're on the same wavelength.
Okay, good. I was gonna say, I can give my 2 cents about recruiting if you need it, but I said that the biggest thing is becoming a well-rounded player. Like, don't just go out there and work on your shots. Don't go out there and just rip 8 meters. Like, we've talked about Belle Smith and how amazing she is. Like, I think she is who every young girl starting to play lacrosse should look up to. I think that is who you want to be. When you ask about who you want to model your game after, what you want to do, you go become Belle Smith is what you do, because she is such a well-rounded player. Like, yeah, go shoot a million balls and work on your shot placement, but don't do it without going to do wall ball and making sure your stick is fluid. Don't do it without going to work on your footwork and being strong and being able to play defense, because as you get older, like everyone comes into college and midfield, everyone comes into college midfielder. So like colleges go put you then where you're strong, and if you're strong everywhere, that's where you want to be. So I think that my like biggest piece of advice is to be just well-rounded and be diverse in your ability to play. Like, and then with that is also comes studying the game and understanding the game, because you can have great stick skills, but you're not going to be good unless you see where the slide is coming from. You see how the offense is moving, and then you can dish the ball. So I think that like watching the game, kind of seeing how people move, how people are working, is good for defense and offense. So I think that studying the game, like making sure you're diverse, and then lastly, which is kind of an unexpected, is like being a multi-sport athlete. Like if you're beginning at lacrosse, go play field hockey, like go play basketball, go do something else with lacrosse, because you learn so much from other sports. You like defense in basketball, exactly the same as lacrosse. Like I played soccer growing up, and everyone always commented on how long I could run. Like I could run forever. And I got that because I played soccer growing up. Like I think that being a multi-sport athlete also helps you so much and translates so much to lacrosse, which I know is difficult nowadays because everyone wants you to go pick something and spend all the money at that one thing. But I think that my 3 keys to success would just be like being able to play offense, defense, ground balls, cross turnovers, go get everything. Like go be great at every single thing that you can in the lacrosse world. And then to watch lacrosse, see what's going on with it, and then also try to go do a different sport too. Go play soccer too. Go run track. Go do something else too to keep you active. It's also PT note, way better for your body if you're a multi-sport athlete. You're way less likely to get injured, and it's way better for your longevity. So
ladies and gentlemen, that piece of advice came from a future physical therapist, so I think I would listen to it. I think that was all great advice. I think you said that everything was great. I think you said how you mentioned Belle Smith. She does everything. She doesn't have a weakness to her game. I totally agree. I would, if I had a daughter playing, I would show her clips of Belle Smith. And also, I think what makes Belle Smith very interesting is in a day and age where Charlotte North and BTBs get an 8-meter shot to get all the highlights. Yeah, you'll see her do BTB here and there, a long shot here and there, but she doesn't. It's not like her game isn't built around anything flashy. She just does everything at a high level, and so I think that's super impressive. I think a lot of like I just said, a lot of the social media attention goes to BTBs and no look shots and all this crazy stuff. Listen, at the end, if you can do that, great, but you don't have to do that to be great. You don't have to do that to be the best player in the world, in my opinion. You don't have to do that to win a national championship, to contribute. So, so what I wrote down. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I second that. Like I think that the flashiness is what people are starting to do now. Like there's 8-year-olds ripping it from the 8. Like that's not what you're gonna do. Like run the ball in. Like I think just get really great at the fine little things that make a good lacrosse player, and you don't have to rip the shots. You don't have to do the BTBs. Like, sure. I second that. That was a great answer.
And the great thing is, if you do all the little things right, then you can add on to your game and you have a great foundation. So, and also listen to Karson Harris. She was an All-American, okay, conference champion, okay. So listen to Karson.
And I never pulled a single BTB in a game.
Oh, for real?
No, I never did any BTB. I never ripped in it. Actually, I ripped like 1 8-meter in my life. So.
Did you score?
It was. Yeah, but I only did it because there was 1 second left.
Okay.
So.
But see, I think so you mentioned 1 second left. I think one of the things that I thought about while you were talking is like have a purpose when you practice. Like be situational. Practice, you're on like practice those 8-meter rips for situations when you have no other choice but to take an 8-meter rip. And you're not doing it because you're trying to be fancy or trying to make the highlights. You're doing it because you have to. So be situational. Practice those quick sticks. Practice, making an uncomfortable pass. Be situational. And the big thing I wrote down from just my personal experience, and I think the experience of life is give yourself breaks. Okay, be a kid. It's so easy to get burnt out nowadays. Like you said, a lot of people want to push you to just do one sport and want to push you to do it year round, want to push you to, travel around all summer playing a sport. Give yourself breaks, be a kid, because once it's over, it's over, There's so much more to life. Yes, you want to be a great athlete, and a lot of great things come along with that. But your mental health, your well-being, there's so much more. Being happy in life, I feel like you need to have balance in everything. Love, having time to yourself, good comedy, everything you could think of. If you want to be happy in life, you got to have balance. So give yourself breaks. The world is not all about lacrosse, in my opinion.
I agree. I think that never take yourself too seriously. That's my number one rule to every college athlete ever. You are not as cool as you think you are. That's my number one.
If you see Belle Smith walking down the street, she is as cool. I don't know if she thinks she's cool because she's very humble, but man, she can do
I guarantee she doesn't think she's that cool. Like, I bet she's very down to earth.
Well, she seems very humble, and that's great as well. No offense, but you see some athletes, and this is every sport. You see them walk, just how they walk. You're like, wow, they think highly of themselves. Okay.
Right. Exactly.
And some of them they are that good, and they can do that. Some of them, be a little more humble. Okay, humble. Anyways. Any final thoughts, Karson, before you go out to dinner with your boyfriend?
No final thoughts. I think this was a fun episode. I like talking about what the fans wanted us to talk about. So we at least have guaranteed 5 or 6 listeners for this podcast, because they're going to want to hear what we had.
Yes, about their for sure. So, absolutely. It was fun. For sure. Hey, it's always fun. It's always a good time up in here. Okay. And last thing I will say is we will definitely have a guest on for the next episode. Scheduling is a little difficult, especially with with certain athletes. They're very busy. So we were hoping to have a guest on for this episode. We will definitely have one on for next episode. We have a good idea of who it will be, but if not, we will still have a guest, period, because we love having guests on. So thank you for listening to The Player and the Journalist. Go Karson. Go Karson, go Karson. Karson is just the best. So we got to give her flower. We gave out a lot of flowers this episode. We got to give Karson her flowers. She's probably going to get some tonight too. So anyways, she might not need our flowers. Okay.
I appreciate that.
Awesome. Well, that is it for episode 19 of The Player and the Journalist.